so I just had a eureka feeling that bioethics was the word, and it was only natural for me to think of that because I was aware of biochemistry and biophysics, for example. And then when that word was taken up by the medical philosophers and narrowed, the focus was really narrowed tremendously. And of course, they had never read the book. I'm sure that the omission of reference to the original use of the word bioethics in a publication was not read and scorned by these people. I am reasonably sure that they had never read any of these articles and that they were starting from square one on their own, and they suddenly discovered a beautiful word, bioethics, and they defined it as medical bioethics. After I retired, in '82, I started putting together a book in which I emphasized the need to combine medical bioethics and environmental bioethics. And curiously enough, the chapters in that book were called Dilemmas in Medical Bioethics, and the other one was Dilemmas in Environmental Bioethics. And actually, the dilemmas in medical bioethics, or as they might call it, clinical ethics, the dilemmas are so great and the challenge is so daunting as to what to do in all of these difficult medical problems that of course they can't think in terms of the ecology and the deteriorating environment. And I didn't sit down and decide to write a book. The book was thrust upon me by Carl Swanson, who had a series with the publisher as an editor to find people. And so he had heard one or two of my lectures, and he persuaded them to ask me to put the lectures together, and they were already published in a book. And I thought of this in terms of the biology and the future. And so I had to write an introduction, and I had to write a final chapter or two. But the real story of the origin of bioethics can best be appreciated by anyone who goes to that 1971 book and to the article in Perspectives in Biology and Medicine that was put together from the book, and go to the final paragraphs of some of those individual chapters. And they tend to end up by mentioning the word survival. And so I was concerned with biology and the future. And then Philip Handler put out a book with the help of a committee. He was president of the National Academy of Sciences, and he had almost the same title. And so I thought, what am I going to do? And then, as I mentioned before, I was riding my bicycle home one night, night, and it hit me that the word was bioethics. And of course, as a PhD in biochemistry in a university that had a department of biophysics, whether you have biophysics, biochemistry, or bioethics, it's a natural development. My book came out in January, and Time magazine ran a whole issue on the problems of molecular biology and the new biology and genetic engineering and all that. And they mentioned my book by name and my name and my location, and the fact that I was called a cancer researcher, but they mentioned some of the ideas. And what I think is not clear and what has never been researched is the impact of the Time magazine article on the media, and the question of whether the New York Times and the Washington Post and any other papers or even the Associated Press ever followed up the Time magazine article with a little item which included the word bioethics. Deep bioethics says, what does the human species have to do to deserve to survive? And if we can say what the human species has to do to deserve to survive, and if we do those things, then we will survive, and we will survive in a form that is congruent with the original concept of bioethics.